Good evening, everybody. My name is Chantel, and I am from the Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition. I'm the Youth Development Coordinator and Transportation Advocacy Program Manager, and I would like to introduce the other members here. I'm going to pass it off to Julia.
Hi, everyone. Bear with me, I'm a little congested still. I am joining from Bikes Not Bombs. I'm the Director of Community Engagement, um, and really excited to bring Youth Bike Summit to Boston. I'll pass it over to Joshua.
Hey everybody, Joshua with the National Youth Bike Council, currently located here in Austin, Texas, and I'm excited to talk to y'all today about the Youth Bike Summit. I'll pass it back to you, Chantel.
Thank you. And we're here to answer any questions that you have. And we're also going to be recording this meeting just to send it out to make sure that if there are some questions that you didn't hear, or if you had a question that you're not sure if we asked, we will be able to also share this with your youth or anybody else who has questions about the workshops and how the summit will be going overall. We're going to do a small presentation. Hopefully it's about 10 to 15 minutes, and then we'll take questions at the end. So what is
Uh,
the Youth Bike Summit? Youth Bike Summit is going to be 3 days of youth and adults celebrating youth leadership, civic engagement, and bicycle education. Explore the bike culture. We want people to listen to safety, advocacy, and community. It's a different way for a youth to meet from across the country. It's really cool to see youth meet each other from different states. It's also a way for you guys to get to know Boston. We want you to explore Boston's past, present, and future by bike. We want you to build friendships and solidarity. And we also want youth and adults and anyone participate to go beyond the bike, which means learning about the intersection of biking, environment, identity, nutrition, advocacy, and more.
and just to make sure that you all know, I want to make sure that we already started promoting it. So we have already had like some, publications published, and we have the infamous golden handlebars that was handed over from traditionally from each Youth Bike Summit to the next host city. So Boston received it, and now we're going to be bringing it to Boston. I want to go over a little bit. Actually, I'll hand it over to Chantel a little bit for all of us to introduce our own organizations. But the National Youth Bike Council is presenting the Youth Bike Summit 2025 this year, and we're co-hosting it for the very first time ever, doing with two organizations hand in hand, Bikes Not Bombs and Mattapan Food and Fitness. So over to you, Chantel.
So some of you may know us and some of you not. So who is MFFC? Mattapan Food and Fitness promotes youth leadership and healthy living in Mattapan. We have a yearly bike ride called Mattapan on Wheels, where we have around 120 riders come out. We have three different intensities of the rides. We have a family ride, intermediate, and experts, and the themes usually change throughout the years. We also have a vigorous youth program, and we've had about 30 plus youth over the years. They do a lot of different community engagement work, do a lot of surveying, talking to the community, and getting them involved in a lot of the healthy food, healthy living, physical activities that we do at the Mattapan for the Fitness Coalition. And I'm going to pass it off to Julia.
So, Bikes Not Bombs, we are actually in our 40th anniversary year. Our mission is to use the bicycle as a vehicle for social change. And we also do a lot of youth development work that really wraps into using the bike. So, through our bike school programming, we have over 100 participants each year learning how to refurbish a bike through our signature like Earn a Bike program, where participants are taking a used bike, refurbishing it over the course of the program and get to keep it as their own at the end of the program. Since then, we've also expanded to include more paid opportunities for youth. So our youth apprentices, we typically have around 30 to 40 each year who are employed with us and helping teach bike school programs as part of our community organizing work and working in our full service bike shop. The root of everything that we do is handling donated bicycles, which we started by shipping them overseas to our partners in the global south. We continue to do that work, and we shipped about 84,000 bikes so far. So we're really trying to balance both our local and our global work.
and the National Youth Bike Council. We're probably most notorious for doing biannual projects every single year, which we just recently in 2022 took on helping run the Youth Bike Summit. So it's always been really great to work with different partners to get that done. We're currently also running something called the YB Hub, which is an opportunity for youth groups that are very interested. So very many people that come to the bike summit to also get a chance to connect even outside of the summit and all year round. We have around 8 council members, and we're all kind of spread throughout the US in a lot of different locations. And so I'm going to bring us directly right here to the a tentative agenda. So if you have any questions or anything like that, as you start to see some of the information pop up, please write it in the chat, and we'll have like a small Q&A later so you can ask any of your questions. Or if you want clarity, feel free. We'll be able to go back to the different slides. And just so you know, a lot of this is pretty tentative. This is what we're playing. This is what we think is going to be able to happen at the Youth Bike Summit this coming year around. The Youth Bike Summit is going to be between May 30th to June 1st. So that's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And traditional, it's going to have a lot of the traditional elements of all of the Youth Bike Summits. So you can see here, one way to stay up to date and engaged on what the actual agenda will be is to sign up for the newsletter. And we're suggesting that people, if you're planning your trips, to try to get to Boston before 12 o'clock for now, because we plan on opening registration about an hour after that or during that same time. We'll have opportunities for people to meet and greet, talk to each other, get introduced, and then also a welcoming reception at 4 p.m. or around 4 p.m. as well, and then kind of give you all the opportunity to explore Boston on that Friday night. So it's going to be a great opportunity for everyone. If you meet some new friends to go out, explore Boston the same night. We'll talk a little bit about that later, how we suggest that you get around. For Saturday, which is going to be the May 31st, we're going to have breakfast options. There's going to be about 3 meals throughout the whole duration of the Youth Bike Summit. So Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Sunday morning are the meals that we plan on providing for now so far during your time there. So if you're budgeting for how you want to get the young people around and how many meals you might want to have, we probably would suggest taking into account Friday night, potentially Friday afternoon, and then Sunday afternoon, depending on when you decide to leave. If you will even stay till Monday, you might want to even take care of Sunday night as well. But either way, we're going to have our opening plenary like we usually do, and workshops will begin directly after the opening plenary. So if you have a youth group that's doing a presentation or you're doing a presentation for different youth groups, make sure that you also have your content prepared. We're going to be located at one location, so you should not have to worry about going in between different locations for workshops and breakfast and things of that nature. We'll have it all within the same location. And then likewise, we'll give some youth-oriented opportunities that night for young people to directly engage with each other or hosted by Bikes Not Bombs or Mattapan Food and Fitness youth for others to, be engaged with. And then once again, you'll have some time to explore Boston a little bit that night as well outside of the workshops. One thing we do suggest is that in reference to the workshops, some of them might be mobile. So we do recommend that if you're coming to bring your helmets, this gives you the opportunity to make sure that you can get on a bike, depending on if the workshop has it. For the big Sunday ride, which is going to be on Sunday, again, recommending that you bring your own helmet, but we do plan on trying to provide some helmets as well. If you have the opportunity to bring your own bicycle and can bring your own bicycle, we've had lots of creative ways, which that was done this year. And some folks on this call are very familiar with how that happened. So thank you to all who helped contribute to last year. We're definitely open to more creative ways. So if there's ways that you want to work that out or talk to us, just contact us. Definitely open to having extra bicycles brought along and things of that nature. And would love to work with y'all to make that happen. So yeah, definitely if you can bring your own bicycle, bring it. If you can bring your own helmet, definitely recommend that. We're going to be usually like summits, we usually do a visioning session after our bicycle ride, but this time around we're thinking about doing our visioning session before our bicycle ride so that anyone that might be tired and doesn't have a vision after riding a bike can get that out, get all of that energy out before then. And then once again, if your group is sticking around, you have the opportunity to explore Boston. We tried to add as many opportunities for different groups that are looking to get familiar with Boston while you're in there to be able to do that. Now, in reference to staying, I'll hand it over to you, Julia, to help us walk through that.
Yeah, so um, the first thing to note is that the majority of our programming on Saturday and on Sunday will be taking place at the host location called Roxbury Community College. And this is in a neighborhood of Boston called Roxbury. That's much closer to B&B and Mattapan, um, Food and Fitness Coalition, and also more representative of our communities. So while it is a perfect location, they do not have housing. However, we've been able to work with a great college downtown Boston called Emerson College, and are working on details of a contract with them for providing housing. So similar to this past year, we'll have dorm room accommodations, singles, and they're configured in kind of a suite style. So having a common space, it's swipe key card entry only, and there's security. Um, and it can house up to 550 participants. So we think it's a really good choice. It's very easy to access for people who are coming into the city for the first time via public transportation. It's really close to the main transportation lines downtown. It's a great hub for getting out and exploring. And there's a lot of new protected bike lanes in and around the area. And it's very close to the Orange Line train, which runs directly to Roxbury Community College. There's a stop right outside the campus. So that's really the direct way for people to get there. We don't have a confirmed hotel block yet, something we're still working on, but hotels in Boston can frequently be very, very expensive. Um, One good option is the Hostel Inn International HI Boston location is downtown. It's close by to Emerson, so that is an option to put on your radar if the dorm room accommodation is not for you. There are a lot of hotels downtown. You can typically find less expensive hotels a little bit further out. However, then you'd have to factor in additional travel time to go from, say, this like highway loop around Boston, which is called like the 95 loop. Um, so a town that would be a little bit further out, you might have more affordable hotel room, but would be really need to factor in that transportation time. So right now, the accommodation price we're looking at, thank you, Chantel, is $90 for a double or 95 for a single. And yes, adults will be able to stay in the dorm rooms. And actually, Emerson College is requiring that we'll have a not a supervisor, but a chaperone every night. So making sure that each floor has a chaperone who's taking accountability. So that'll either be someone from our own staff or a trusted volunteer to do that, in addition to the campus's own security. So there are different layers there as well. But we've been really pleased with it. And again, it's a very great location. Um, if you want to go to the next slide, Joshua, perfect. So some locations to know. Some of you might be flying here. Boston Logan International Airport is again connected via public transportation. There are buses and will take you directly to a train station called Airport. It's fairly easy to navigate and fairly affordable. If you're coming by train or bus, you'll probably arrive at Boston South Station, which again, you can take public transportation directly from South Station closer to Emerson College. You might also be arriving, you have the option to arrive at Back Bay Station, or if someone's coming from Greater Boston and staying like at their own home, those are the train stations that they might be coming in through, such as North Station as well. Emerson College, as you can see here on the map, is really at the heart of downtown, and location E further down is Roxbury Community College. But all in all, it takes about 25 minutes to get from Emerson to Roxbury. Emerson College is also where we're going to hopefully be having breakfast. That's all but confirmed, just as long as we have as many participants as we're expecting, but it should be all set. So you'll have housing and breakfast at Emerson, and then make your way further down to Roxbury using the Orange Line or biking. So as you can see here, I tried to zoom in a little bit on the map. You can get a little bit of my idea of our transportation system called the T or the MBTA. It's really a pretty good way to get around once you kind of get the hang of it. So from Chinatown, which is the closest Orange Line station to Emerson College to Roxbury Crossing, that's about 25 minutes, and that's just a single seat journey, so no transfers needed. You can bike as well. There would be some street riding needed. There would be probably a mix of on-street versus a dedicated pathway that runs through Boston called the Southwest Corridor. This is a really great multimodal path that hopefully at least one of our mobile workshops will cover because it has a great history to it. But it parallels the Orange Line all the way from Back Bay down to Forest Hills. So that's a good way to get around. It's about 2.5 miles or 20 minutes. You can make it a little bit longer to take more protected bike lanes or more painted bike lanes. So that is up to you. We'll definitely like want to know from people if they're interested in doing group rides over, then maybe that's something we need to take into consideration for organizing, to do like a kind of like a bike bus, if you will, for the Youth Bike Summit. I think it'd be appropriate. Also important to note, we do have a bike share system. It's called Blue Bikes. However, it is only available to people ages 16 and up. So that's just something to note. It is a good way to get around the city and really convenient. But you would need to, one, absolutely bring your own helmet for that, because it's not provided. And only, again, only for ages 16 and up. So kind of a bummer on that one because it doesn't fit all of our demographics, but it's still worth mentioning for getting around. Right. I think for the workshops, I'll pass it over, I think, to Chantel or Joshua. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the workshop themes. So workshop themes, some of the stuff that we hope to get you excited for being here and wanting to make sure that you and your youth can come out. The first theme is called Cycles, and it stands for community youth cycling through life, creating empowering spaces. And the focus area for that workshop is food access, nutrition, health, and green spaces. Our next theme is Dare to Bike, and that focus area is confidence, leadership, bike repairs, customization, and skill building, career building, and bike safety. Our third theme is art, identity, and culture. The focus areas are art, micromobility, barriers to biking, and youth development. And then the last one is other. And this is if you want to create a workshop, but it doesn't fit neatly into the three themes that I had stated before. And so you can scan this QR code in the corner and it will lead you directly to I believe it's the form to submit for the workshop. And you'll be able to see the themes again, go through it, and kind of get a chance. It is an open form, so if you need to kind of come back and finish something out, you can. But it's really easy to fill out. We hope that your youth, and if you are working with some, will be able to fill the form out themselves. And that way we can help give them some sense of responsibility and some sense of role and power while they're going through creating their workshops with you and getting ready to show them at the Youth Bike Summit. And so we hope that you guys are ready to submit. I think you can go to the next slide. All right, so some proposal guidelines are workshops may address topics including cycling, youth education, advocacy, and more. You can have a panel if you want. Your workshop can come into different forms. We do ask that you keep it to 60 minutes long. And the audience is, of course, youth, teens, college, and graduate students. You will have educators, advocates, and community leaders and advocates there. And you might have some industry people from us like MBTA or other organizations. Some examples from different things that we've had before is a mobile tour by bike, of course, and a community garden, some food pantries, and learn about the intersection of biking, food, and sustainability. So we hope that you are able to use this QR code to submit your workshop ideas and join us at the 2025 Youth Bike Summit.
And also wanted to add on as well, some other frequently asked questions that we get before opening up the Q&A. Sometimes groups have asked, is it possible to come to the Youth Bike Summit before Friday if there are like any extra accommodations available. I believe we will have extra accommodations available. So for example, if you come Thursday and you're looking for a dorm option, that should be available. And of course, sign up for our newsletter to find out. Best way to let us know that you're interested in that is simply just replying to any of the newsletters and expressing that interest. Because then we can make that available. Um, the other one is about virtual opportunities. This year, the Youth Bike Summit will be in person and it won't have virtual opportunities. We're looking into ways in which we could do that for future years, but for 2025, we won't be offering any like virtual streaming or anything like that for the Youth Bike Summit. The last one that we also get is how much does it cost to take a young person to the Youth Bike Summit? And for your convenience, we decided to do youth and adult. So did a little bit of calculations. And the only thing we did not take into account was the amount that it would cost to do the travel to the state. So if you have to take a flight or a train or a car ride or whatever it is, we didn't take that into account, but we did take into account how much you might potentially spend in reference to transportation costs, 3 meals that you would probably do on your own outside of the Youth Bike Summit, housing, the specifically going with the dorm option. We did not use the hotel. The tickets for the Youth Bike Summit, we also put in there the ticket prices roughly and about, and maybe, yeah, those were the main ones. We rounded out to one young person, excluding like any flights into the state, would be about $400. Any adult that would be coming would be $450 is what you probably want to do per person as our recommendation for now. That will be a minimum as well. So if you're looking to bring different young people, and that is all that we had. Glad to already see some questions come in here in the chat. Don't let me stop you, Julia or Chantel, if y'all want to also get some of these. We have some other steering committee members on as well from the Youth Bike Summit, so feel free to chime in as well if there's a question you think you can answer. This first question we have here is, when is the submission deadline for this year for the workshops?
Do you want me to hop in and take that one, Josh?
Yes, please.
Great. Yeah. So my name is Roland Hurlbert, and I am a volunteer helping with the workshop planning committee. We are setting a deadline of March 1st to get all workshops in via the Google form. Certainly, if there's a need for an extension, we would be open to we'd be open to that if that was something that was needed for a certain group that was still doing some planning. You could reach out to the event at youthbikesummit.com to inquire about something like that.
Thank you, Roland. Another question I see here in the chat as well is, what language supports might be available for multilingual learners during workshops? I think this is one that I could probably take. We currently have mainly English. If there are suggestions or recommendations that we could, that we could support, again, that would be something that I would recommend that if you're on our newsletter, just reply and ask for that, or voice it right now. So this way we can start to provide additional support for anything else that you believe would be necessary or be helpful to your group or your youth that are coming to attend the event. And that's a great question. Thanks for asking that one.
Can I ask a question not in the chat?
Yeah.
So I mean, last year we had some support from Diana. Obviously, she was from Allentown, so she was really kind of critical to help, do a little bit of fundraising, do some organizing to bring some folks out from Illinois. I mean, that's kind of what we're hoping to do again. Having experienced the summit, I have a better idea, right? So, we can be proactive in our fundraising, but are you anticipating kind of groups and assisting groups to kind of make things happen and get folks out there, or kind of hoping that organizations can figure it out on their own. There's no rush.
Actually, I think the context actually, if you want to explain maybe to the larger group like what y'all did do last year to kind of get to the Youth Bike Summit and who you brought.
Yeah, I mean, so I didn't know anything really about the event, and so Joshua was able to obviously share information, got all excited, and Ride Illinois, we're a statewide bike advocacy org, so we don't do youth programming, but we saw the value in bringing young people from Illinois and organizations from Illinois. So we expressed the interest, and we had some insistence. We got connected with Diana. She helped do a little bit of fundraising, helped us figure out some of the logistics. And this might be valuable for orgs that are coming for the first time, right? You just don't know what to expect. So it was just kind of having a person almost like on the inside, and Diana was doing it all on her own time. But it proved valuable for us because we didn't know what we didn't know, and she was able to help just kind of answer questions and ease us into the experience, which was really really great.
And I know one thing that was very useful was gathering some local support. I think the majority of folks that help you get to the Youth Bike Summit were either located in the same city or near the
Yeah.
same city. And so
Yeah.
it definitely was like fundraising on behalf of like Diana and yourself and putting the effort together. But it proved useful.
And that's what we hope to do this year is a focused fundraiser to say we want young people from Illinois to attend this. Here's our goal. Here's what it's going to allow us to do. Figure out the logistics of travel and stuff like that. But that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. But I still think having that, and maybe it's just someone to fire questions off to when they come up. Just kind of almost played like a quarterback role or help a traffic cop role, helping out, figuring out how do we make things happen and what questions haven't we asked. So again, just proves useful for us, and it might be maybe not too much of a burden, but a service that can help bring some other groups out, especially those that are traveling from further distances.
Yeah, thanks for voicing that. If anyone else from the steering committee has any other advice for Dave, let him know. The only thing I would say, Dave, is we might not have as much power as Diana had, but we're definitely here to answer questions, to be able to help so that you and your group or the folks that you would want to bring could also still make it.
I have a question a little bit related to that. I'm from Pittsburgh, first of all, and I coordinate a cycling program within our school district across the 3rd through 11th grade. And I've never been to the summit. I've been hearing about you all for years. And I guess I was curious how oh, yay. Hi, Roland. We should connect. Okay. Anyway, I saw the chat that this person's from Pittsburgh too. Anyway, how do youth typically hear about this to attend? Is this something that is there any information that I could share with my students? We have a lot. I mean, we have hundreds of students every year who participate in our program. And some of them have just started to get into a little bit more leadership positions. So is that I would kind of strongly suggest that they come and we do what Dave said, kind of fundraise locally and then go? Or is there I don't know, how do youth, I know I can show up and I will get a lot out, but it's going to be much better. I think the whole point of this is more for the actual youth, not the people coordinating the youth program. I see some nods. So do you have any tips on sharing with my students and kind of how to build that momentum? I've never been, so sometimes it's hard for me to know exactly what to share with them.
I had my hand up to respond to Dave.
Sorry.
But no, it's okay. I'm just trying to think of how to have an answer for both of you at the same time.
Well, feel free to take Dave's and then mine.
I will say on the the logistics slash like getting people here side. We're here to answer all of your questions around transportation. There's plenty of info out there online for how to get around, but if you have questions specifically about like how to, bring bikes onto a train, or would this, itinerary work out? What do you think about that? You can reach out to us. Our FAQ page on the website is not fully fleshed out yet. So we really want to have like all the information out there, and set kind of behind the scenes before we put it out there and make sure we're getting the same message to everyone. And I think that's what's really helpful about having this Q&A session now, is that it's helping us think about, okay, what are the things we need to address sooner rather than later to make sure that our attendees know what they need to do in order to attend or to help get the word out there. On the fundraising side, I believe it's usually kind of a both and. So I'm not sure who Diana was necessarily, but she sounds like a Wonder Woman. We are doing a lot on our end to fundraise locally, to raise money to cover this event and keep costs low for participants as much as possible. And that's why we're still trying to determine what exactly the registration costs will be, because we do still have some promising prospects out there. So that is like the first like line item that we want to get to folks. And I believe last year it was around 200 per person, I think with early bird pricing and regular pricing. And we'll probably take a similar approach to that in early 2025 as well. I believe event registration will be primarily just through our website, and it'll have all the information there. And we'll also take your information around housing needs. And housing is provided separately from registration costs. So that's the dorm room option of $90 to $95 a night. So that's something you can already kind of pair out. We'll also have online the full list of what meals we will cover, included as your registration, and what meals you will need to budget for as well. When B&B attended in 2024, we had to set a budget on our own end. So referring to like the IRS per diem estimate, to kind of guesstimate what would the costs be on our end. So from there, like using that and multiplying it by, the number of attendees you want to have, that can give you that goal number for fundraising. And there already are a lot of great photos and testimonials on our website that you could use for your own fundraising platform, to create kind of an ask, and say like, this is the kind of like youth leadership options that people have reached from going to this. And this is why I want to send, 15 students from my cycling program here in Pittsburgh, or 20 students from my cycling program here in Illinois to go to this National Youth Bike Summit. So I think that's something that is really a good way to do it, but we are trying to do our best on our side to keep costs as low as possible and reaching out to folks. I guess the other questions around, maybe I saw a question around scholarship opportunities, scholarship options for Boston Public School students or students who were previously in bike school with Bikes Not Bombs. That is a great question. We'll have to take a look at that. We don't have, again, a firm answer on exact scholarships, but we are trying to do as much as we can. So I will definitely keep that in mind. But
I
yes,
will add there too. It's not uncommon that folks that are closer or local to the location that the Youth Bike Summit goes to, are not only able to get there for cheaper, but also some form of scholarship. So definitely keep your eyes open for that. I think last year we had quite a few of them scholarships actually for students that were coming. So we haven't announced anything yet, but please stay abreast for that. Laura, did you feel like your question was answered? Actually, another part that I did want to answer or add to that too is we have had groups in the past that have come from schools. I think one of your questions was, how do students learn about it? To Julia's point, Julia mentioned if you're trying to do fundraising, definitely take some content from the website, of course. Another part is another way that we do get students to come usually is from like nonprofit programs. So after school groups, they usually have a little bit more flexibility. And so therefore, when they bring a staff member, they usually bring one or two young people with them as well. So that's how we get like the majority youth events. For schools, it is a little bit different because sometimes the leadership that is involved in the student group may or may not have a teacher or sponsor. So it's always important that there's some form of teacher representative or adult representative that can help those students because then they could start thinking about fundraising. They could also start thinking about travel because fundraising is one part. Getting the travel part together for the students is something completely different that every school and every district takes a little bit differently. So we'll leave that part up to the schools and the teacher sponsors to be familiar with because it's not uncommon for students to travel. It just depends a little bit, but yeah, we used to have a fundraising kit, and we're currently working on getting that back together, and we'll tailor a little bit towards student groups as well.
And is it, would it be odd if I have family in Boston. Would it be weird for just an adult to come scope it out to with the goal of bringing kids next year? Like, can adults just come themselves too? Okay, I see nods. I've always wondered that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I can hop in. That I remember there were a couple of adults I think from Nevada maybe who came. I remember riding on the Allentown Velodrome with a couple of adults who ran cycling programs in their area who just came as part of their professional development. And I think last year being the first youth bike summit that there maybe had been in a few years, that there were definitely some young professionals who just came to like see what was going on. I know, speaking from my personal experience, I attended with Pittsburgh Youth Leadership with a couple of their dedicated staff members. I'm just a volunteer for them. We only brought one young adult with us as like a kid representative. I think maybe that the organization wasn't quite sure because they hadn't done this before or didn't know. I think going forward would love to attend with a larger group of kids. It did feel like many of the nonprofit groups or bike shop groups that came with 3, 4, 5, 6 kids, whatever it may be. That was really it was really the environment for them to like meet folks and have a good time. But the networking aspect, from a professional standpoint was also extremely valuable. So yeah, would not dissuade anyone from coming in any capacity.
Yeah, and Laura, I'll add, and I see that Pablo joined. Like we had a crew, I didn't know any of the four that came with us. And I mean, it was I think, an even better experience because of that. So I was showing up for, as my organization wanting to figure out like what makes young people tick? How do we keep them interested in bikes and that? And it was super valuable for me. Like I said, we don't do youth programming, but the things, even the little nuggets of information or the connections, like Roland said, like you couldn't put a price on that. So I would encourage you to somehow figure out how to get there.
Thank you all.
Yeah, and also don't want to sign anybody up for anything, but always recommend that groups, like if a group is coming from a particular location, traveling together makes things so much easier. For previous youth bike summits, my group has done something like that. I think in like 2016, 2015, and 17. It made things easier because we were all coming from the same location. All right, thank you for these questions. Any other questions? Just feel free to come off mute and just ask.
Hey Joshua, last year at the dorm room, the Pennsylvania made us do background checks with our state. Do you know if that's going to be a thing at Emerson College this year at all?
For Corey checks, I believe
Background checks. Every adult that we brought, and we had some youth that were 18 as well. At least they were considered youth for our organization, and so we were required to get background checks to stay in the dorms. It may have just been a Pennsylvania thing, but I know we had to kind of scrounge something together last minute because we weren't super aware of that until we got there. Do you know if Emerson is going to be doing something like that this year?
yes, I believe so. I think I've always heard them referred to as Cori checks, CORI, and it's basically the same thing. But yeah, I also had to get one in order to attend. I think it's pretty standard for anything that involves working with youth directly. So that is probably to be expected again as well this year, but I'll double check our contract.
And I wonder if, because I had to do the same thing, and I'm looking at mine now, I felt like there was a period of time that it was kind of valid for, but
Yeah, there is a usual period of validity. I just need to double check that.
One question I have to some of the folks currently on the call that are thinking about coming, if you were like, how many young people do you think that you might bring, and do you think you would motivate them to do a workshop? Obviously, we just showed some of the themes, but knowing what exactly, not necessary, but how many folks do you think you might bring in? What workshop do you think you'd encourage them to do a workshop? And that's to any group of folks looking to potentially come.
I'm open to, again, we don't do programming, but out, we're connected with several orgs in Chicago in particular, but also some like been trying to get them excited in that, in the hopes that they'd be willing to do a workshop. I know Blackstone Bikes recently met with them, and they seemed very interested. So that's kind of the role that I hope to play. As far as the numbers, Pablo, you and I need to scheme and figure out how many people we can get. Maybe half dozen.
We'll try aiming for something like that, 10, 12.
And then we're gonna try to do 6 youth if we can. We'll see how many we can get interested, and then hopefully we can do one and or two submissions to present. So we'll see what we can do.
Awesome, that sounds amazing. I saw Lauren here in the chat also mention from New York, 2 to 3 young people this time, and definitely would encourage them to do the youth activists to submit a workshop as well, which is amazing. Thank you all for answering that question. It's good to get an idea. All right, if there are no other questions, going once, going twice. Julie, do we have any like closing remarks or anything, or last words, or?
I do not. Besides that, this has just been really helpful, especially in terms of the order of things we should prioritize to get info out there, to get more people engaged and help spread the word. Again, take a look at the the workshop proposals and think about like something. It doesn't have to be a standard classroom format. It can be a mobile workshop. So just play around with it, have fun. And hopefully we'll get more information out to you soon. Highly recommend signing up for different newsletters, the Youth Bike Summit newsletter in particular, but also going to give a plug for the Bikes Not Bombs and Mattapan Food and Fitness Coalition listservs, just to really drive it home. And you can learn more about us. And we'll have some of the highlights for Youth Bike Summit in there as well coming up. Beyond that, thank you all for joining us. And we've got more work to do, but really excited to bring more people over to Boston, and get just more youth involved. I know I had such an incredible time in Allentown, so I'm really excited to bring this closer to home.
Yeah, thank you all so much for coming. Have
Thanks,
a great night.
everyone.